Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we've got a special show for you. We're talking Kanye, Trump, and more. Stick with us on this interesting pre-Thanksgiving show.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Hello, Justice fans, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chelsea Galicia, and we have a really cool show today. The way that this went down, I woke up this morning to find out that my trusty co-host could not make it today to Justice is served. And so usually it's him and I, or maybe somebody else, but we got lawyers, you know, all generally available to talk the law. But today, being the day before Thanksgiving, everybody's gone, and so I thought this was going to be a one-woman show. Fortunately, you never know what you're going to get when you walk into the studio, and you will have fabulous friends from all genres of television who are willing to join you on a moment's notice and talk law with you. So with permission from the boss man, Dario, we have some non-attorney guests. Doesn't mean they're not opinionated, but we got non-attorney guests to talk about this week's legal news. All right, so they are Sean Waltman.
Sean Waltman
of the WWE,
also known as X-Pac.
Thank you so much for joining us. And then from across the pond, we have stand-up comedian Variety D.
Yep, it's your girl Variety D.
Thanks so much for, I mean, really, I mean, this was like within the last half hour that I'm like, hey, anybody want to
say thank you? It's thank you, Chelsea.
Awesome. You know? All right, so let's do this rundown that we've got this week. The first story we've got to talk about is a correction, which I don't love because, you know, who likes to be wrong? But last week, we were on here celebrating for Brendan Dassey because he was, we thought, just days away from going home, that the appeals had been exhausted, and no, he was going to be allowed to go home pending the prosecution's decision about whether they were going to retry him or not, since a judge had found that his
confession was coerced.
Exactly, was coerced. Maybe you're a better lawyer than I am, because I can't think of all these words. So the confession was said to be coerced, and therefore, since the confession was the linchpin of the entire case against him, and that was thrown out, you know, very likely the whole case was going to be tossed out. But this Attorney General for the state of Wisconsin has fought tooth and nail to keep the poor kid in prison while they figure out what's going down. How bad do you feel for this kid?
Well, I'm a little bit emotionally invested in it because I was actually planning a trip to go visit Brendan in prison.
Wow.
Through his brother.
Wow.
And I'm much like everyone else that watched that. I don't know how you can be a human being and watch that and not be just irate.
Yeah, because if you watch Making a Murderer, and even if you have a lot of empathy for the victim of the crime,
Absolutely.
Teresa Hallback, you still can see that the way justice was served in this case doesn't feel like justice at all, even if Brendan Dassey had something to do with it. The way that this case was tried, the evidence accumulated, just was not right. Ethically, legally, any way that you want to slice it or dice it.
And how many people were involved in this?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was. Did you see it? Did you see Making a Murder? If you didn't,
Only saw commercials because they don't show it in London, UK.
oh Lord.
Interesting.
But,
I know.
And there is a season 2 coming.
Yeah, we're really
okay.
excited for
I
that.
definitely gotta watch
So apparently Brendan Dassey's a big wrestling fan, and that's how you got involved.
Yes. Well, if you're watching Making a Murder, when they bring him in, and you know, it's obvious to everyone else watching that he's not going home again.
Right, but he doesn't know.
And the only thing he's saying to his mother is, "Do you think I'll be at home in time for WrestleMania?" And it was just like, oh, it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You know?
I bet you. What did you think when you heard that, or did it give you the idea to go visit him?
Well, actually, his brother had reached out to somebody in the media, and he contacted me. And
So what happened with your plans to go see him?
they moved as soon as I was getting ready to go visit him. They moved him to a different prison.
Wow! So you
supposedly
had been,
for his own protection.
You had been approved to go and visit him.
Hadn't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
And actually, there was a bit of conflict within the family over me going to see him as well. So I just backed off and, you know, just decided to, you know, wait until, you know, things got a little bit.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And then when when the conviction, what was it? It was overturned, right?
But essentially, yes.
So I'm obviously
Yeah.
not a lawyer, so
Yeah.
I screw the terminology up quite often.
You got it
but-
better than I did
Thanks.
at some point.
So, a judge said he was to be released within 24 hours. That was a lot longer than 24 hours ago, wasn't it, Chelsea?
Well, it was last Wednesday. It was supposed to be that he
Right.
was released Friday at 8 p.m. But hours after we went on the air and said Brendan Dassey's
Yes.
going home, then we found out not so fast.
Right.
And so he's being held because apparently the Attorney General is very fixed on seeing this case through the eyes of Teresa Hallback's family. And even though Brendan Dassey won't be able to go home for Thanksgiving, he's saying, well, but Teresa Hallback's family doesn't get to see her for Thanksgiving. And
Right.
so in advocacy for the family of Teresa Hallback, he wants to keep him in jail until the
Regardless of
moment that
everyone, of whether or not he's guilty of this crime or not, right? Let's just keep him in jail. Doesn't matter, just because, it'll make somebody else feel better.
He does say, I don't know whether he actually legitimately believes it, but he does say that he thinks that the confession was not coerced, that he's going to try and
Amazing.
argue that.
How in that? I just don't understand how anybody...
I know,
no matter-
lawyers can make great liars
Quick
sometimes.
question: is this quite frequent nowadays in the United States that trials and tribulations like these happen?
Well, the fascinating thing is that none of us would have heard about this had it not been for this documentary type series that came out about it. And so it was really astonishing for anybody in the first place to take this case up on appeal and look at it seriously. And that I do think was because of the documentary. Nobody will admit that they changed their mind or gave this case an extra
Right.
bit of attention because a silly movie. I don't think it was silly, but I'm sure some people would say, it's just a documentary piece comes out and now the whole law is going to look at this differently. Well, kind of, yeah, because the American collective mind was just in shock and horror about how this went down. And so I think someone along the way is like, all right, we better really look at this.
A lot of denial going on, too, in this
Yes.
country over this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the road to justice is going to be longer for Brendan, but I believe that he will go home because there is no other evidence besides this confession that tied him to Teresa Hallback's murder.
Regardless of whether his uncle Stephen was guilty or not.
Right. Totally separate case.
But the thing that ties these two together, and you're the attorney here, but if Brendan's confession is thrown out, then that confession can't be used. Apparently, I guess you can't bear fruit from a poisoned well.
Wow,
Is that correct?
Wow,
That's a
yes, you
classic
sound like
saying.
you went to law school. Yeah, in law school, I recall it as being you can't. There's no fruit from the poisonous tree.
Okay.
So if a confession was illegally obtained, that confession cannot be used to
So it sounds like
for any real
it's forbidden.
Exactly.
It's
legal
forbidden
purpose.
for that confession to take place.
but for Stephen Avery, the case against him was sort of settled, or he was convicted before Brendan. So
Okay.
the conviction cannot really be seen to have.
It wasn't based on.
important weight.
It wasn't based on Brendan's confession.
No.
No.
Not if I recall correctly. Yeah, that Stephen was tried first
Right.
and was convicted first, and so at the yes.
Yes.
If my memory serves me well, but I think the kid will go home at some point, just not anytime soon, and clearly not in time
Sure.
for Thanksgiving.
And
Yeah.
I don't think Brendan has Stephen has Catherine Zellner, the attorney that
There
She's a
are
big shot.
attorneys working diligently on Brendan's behalf, and I believe they'll do a good job. Yeah. So all right. That is a bit of a bummer news heading into the holiday. If you believe in justice and if you believe in Brendan, and you don't necessarily have to agree that he is necessarily innocent in order to see that this is
That's right.
at the moment a miscarriage of justice.
It is, and I was saying this earlier to you. To me, sometimes guilty people need to go free to make sure that innocent people are not punished and sometimes put to death
Right.
for things they
Yeah,
did.
it's the
Yes.
age-old question about which is worse, somebody
Sorry.
who's wrongfully convicted or an innocent person that's wrongly set free. And you and I appear to be on the same side of this, that I would,
You would think reasonable people would agree. but-
reasonable people differ on this one.
Well,
It seems to me with this kind of a justice situation is there's so many questions yet so little answers, or in this case, the answers are being swept under the carpet.
Well, the problem is
That's how
that
it sounds
our
like.
justice system is very long and winding and many levels
very
of
similar
appeals.
to the UK.
Yeah.
UK has
and there's a
similar problem as
different
well.
one for people with different,
I know what you're trying to say,
money.
and this is very true, and that can be an entire show on its
Oh,
own.
yeah.
Before we get too derailed by that conversation, which I would love to have, we got to give some attention to Kanye, because he's going through
sure.
a
Yeah, he is.
kind of a crisis here, legal, financial, and health all
Yeah.
rolled up into one. So Monday he announces that he is bailing on his tour. It's got about 20 some odd shows left. He's already done about 40, I believe, but he cannot complete it. And then hours later, he is said to be wheeled off in an emergency, in an ambulance, handcuffed to a gurney.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which gives the impression that he was taken in under a 5150.
5150.
And you know a little bit about that.
I do. That's why when you mentioned that this is one of your topics, I'm like, I know a little something about that.
And thank you very much for being willing to talk about it,
Yeah.
because not everybody would be so willing to,
Oh yeah, I was
share
51.
that.
I was 5150 I was actually where they brought Kanye. I was already at UCLA Medical Center trying to check myself in because I was so messed up and I hadn't been to bed and well over a week.
Wow.
And so I was seeing things, and so I went to check myself in, and I didn't trust anyone. I was so scared that once I got there, I wouldn't actually take the step to go and check myself in. So I wandered around the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, and finally somebody was like, "Who's this guy? He just keeps wandering around all day." And next thing you know, I see a couple officers come in, and I knew they were there for me. And I walked right up to him. I said, "You're probably looking for me." And I just kind of spilled the beans on everything and told him, I'm like, "Look, I'm in bad shape right now. I don't trust anyone." I told him the situation with the chemicals I was using, and they
took you
cuffed me and stuffed me and brought me downtown to Twin Towers. They didn't keep me at UCLA where Kanye went.
That's very interesting
Right.
and disturbing.
Yes, and but I wasn't. I was down and out at the time. People
Yeah.
knew who I was, but I was in
Yeah.
the gutter.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
That's crazy.
I didn't have the status that Kanye did.
Yeah. So
So I went right to Twin Towers, and I was there for 72 hours is a 5150.
Right. So 5150 is if a medical professional or a police officer believes that you are
Danger to yourself and others.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Then they can hold you for 72 hours. At the end of that, or even before that, a doctor can call it off.
Yes.
A person can voluntarily sign themselves into a hospital and stay longer, or a medical professional can determine after 72 hours that it needs to actually be extended up to 14 days.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on with Kanye. We can't even confirm that it was a 5150, just that signs point to it, and that the doctor called 911 and did mention a psychosis and things of that nature.
The only other thing I can think of is a Baker Act. Is that what they call that here?
I have not heard of that.
Well, okay, in Florida.
Okay.
Baker Act is where you have, I believe it's 3 loved ones or family members or friends that have to sign for you to be
Oh,
committed
interesting.
against your will.
Wow, I've not
Yes.
heard of that. I don't know if
Yeah.
we had something like that
I don't
in
know if we have
California.
that in London. I don't know if we have any of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. But he is still under medical care now, as far as we know. And at the same time, there are questions about what happens now to all the money that was involved or lost as a result
Yeah.
of these concerts not going through. So it's been estimated that Kanye himself is set to lose about $30 million by foregoing these concerts. And of course, there's all sorts of contracts and money at play with the venues and other people involved in this kind of massive production. So the question becomes who's liable to pay for all of this, and whether there was an insurance policy was everyone's first question, and it looks like there is. And so an insurance policy, if he had a good one, would cover all the loss to the venues, promoters, and all sorts of those, and to Kanye himself, which is huge, that $30 million that he would get anyway. If, the big if, right? Insurance company isn't just going to hand over the money happily.
Never.
No, come on.
You know, if he had a pre-existing condition,
Yes.
or did some kind of conduct, behavior, action that brought this on himself, then he may not be covered. And this assumes that, you know, they accept the doctor's note for the reason why he cannot continue the show.
Oh, you know, it's not going to end there. They're going to get their own doctors, and also they're going and they're looking at his the music he's put out in the recent past, where he talks about his depression issues and things like that.
But he's been doing that for years, though, since college dropout.
But they might argue that that is evidence of a pre-existing condition.
It's a very, very good argument.
That is a good point. But I mean, I have a few of his early albums from when he's like, you know, his jaw was broken back in the day, and you know, before his mum passed. So it's kind of like, when you think about it, his lyrics say how he's really feeling. You know, it's emotion. You know, within the lyrics.
Well, but then again, we're all, you know, guilty of having emotions at some point, and something like the passing of his mother, if he was depressed around that time, would not be sufficient to be a pre-existing condition. But if there was an ongoing issue, and that
even garden variety depression, not that there's really any garden variety because it's so different in each person,
So true.
but even that, I mean, can we really call that a pre-existing condition? Because I mean, who the hell doesn't have a pre-existing condition then?
Yeah,
True.
it is true. But
We'll find out, right?
this kind of reason for canceling the tour is the kind of reason that lends itself well to a lawsuit, because this isn't something where, like, Lady Gaga tore something in her hip, and that, you know, you can X-ray it, you can MRI it, you can measure it, and you can see it. You know, mental, emotional issues obviously can't be measured that way, and so you can have one doctor say this guy's depressed, can't leave the house, and you can have another doctor say, he's just feeling sad, but he's otherwise just being lazy.
My money is on the insurance company is going to pay something, just not what they were originally
The way
supposed
that
to.
it usually works is that they don't just get to come out and say, we estimate that we want to pay this much. They first Kanye or his attorneys would have to submit a claim to the insurance company, and the insurance company probably has at least 30 days, if not more, to investigate to see if they're going to accept or reject the claim. This takes me back to my workers' comp days. Generally, these insurance companies, at least here in California, will issue like a pretty basic standard objection and deny the claim, even in some of the most ridiculous situations. So an insurance company generally is going to deny a claim, especially something of this magnitude, because if it's just $30 million to Kanye himself, I don't even know the estimates for how much the rest of the coverage would possibly be for. So it's a big amount of money, and they're going to want a lot of time and resources and energy to be able to look into this and see really if they're going to pay out $30+ million. So I wouldn't be surprised if the insurance company initially rejects it and they deny the claim, and then it'll go back and forth about proof. You know, the insurance company may not want to believe the doctor that diagnosed Kanye with this condition. They may want their own doctor to look at it, and you know, this isn't exactly a work comp claim, so I can't say exactly how this kind of case goes down, but it'll go like this, and then at some point there will be a negotiation of, you know, how much should be paid out, if any. I doubt this will go to trial. Is that done in arbitration? It depends on the contract that was signed.
It really seems to me that Kanye West has been going through a financial crisis for this year alone. Because if you remember back when they first started Tidal, he had this thing where he was asking some people to borrow like a huge amount of dollars.
He tweeted Mark Zuckerberg to give him money for his ideas.
Yeah, and then now this season, he's all like cussing him out and stuff, and, you know, saying, "Oh, I voted for Donald Trump," and blah blah. And now he's going through this, so it's like,
Yeah, I mean, it does give rise to little, conspiracy theories about whether he just wanted out of the concert because he was kind of unraveling.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Trump comment, the "I would have voted for Trump if I voted" comment, was evidence of his unraveling or just his nature. Who knows?
It's like a lost
but
straw.
then he attacked Beyonce
And Jay-Z.
and then stormed off.
That's right.
From the stage after like 10 minutes of performing. So, but it's hard to know at that point, is that really a man unraveling or is that just him having a temper tantrum, which has kind of become, if not expected, understood to be part of him.
My gut is that it's nervous breakdown stuff. It's just I mean, he's always like up here when it comes to all the rants and everything. And so I think he's always at the edge of a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Pre-existing condition?
Maybe.
Perhaps. I mean, it is interesting now looking back on this because I mentioned on the show how I saw him, I think it was 3 weeks ago, if not maybe a month ago at the longest. It was just hours before I went on the air with Justice is Served, and I was talking to my co-host Shock about how I had seen him at lunch and that he seemed to be totally fine. He was there with Scooter Braun, who I guess now has taken over his management. Seemed to be in a fine mood. An older couple came over to the table to talk to him. He seemed engaged in the conversation.
Okay. So it was calm and collective.
He was. Yeah, they were talking for like 5-10 minutes. He took pictures with the people that he was talking to.
Okay.
And seemed to be chill. But I guess a lot can change in 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, it can. I know from experience. Yeah, you can be just a mess and bounce back. It's not that you're really bouncing back, it's that you present well. It's that other people's perception of you is that you're okay.
Yeah.
You know what's going on inside. And
It's the same with comedians as well. So in the comedy game, there's a lot of comedians, even from yesteryear, like God bless Robin Williams, and Red Fox and everybody. They've been through it. I've been through it myself. It's times where I had to stop doing comedy for a second because I was going through so much, losing family members here, there, and everywhere. And trying to put on that smile, yes, I'm fine, let the show go on. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But I think what Kanye really needs, I've been saying this years ago since when his mother passed away, is a good support team.
Yes.
A good, real support team. Because I think what's going on now, it's like, no disrespect to the Kardashians, but they're going through some mess as well. So with him jumping through that mess with, Kim Kardashian, from when she got her ring stolen and all that stuff, find a solution, instead of more problems, all this political stuff. Ignore that for a week,
Yeah.
Stick to your family.
What kind of advice, having gone through, somewhat of a similar situation? I mean, we can't say exactly that the situations are similar, but what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, what would you say to
I agree with variety. You have all these people around you that are depending on you to pay the bills, and so the last thing I think they're going to do, a lot of them, is tell you, hey, you need help.
Yeah. It is tough for people around them to say, hey, you need a big fat timeout, and none of us are going to get paid for a while,
That's
but you
right.
better go take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You probably don't hear that very
Not so
often.
much.
You probably didn't hear that, people saying, oh, you should take...
I was fortunate, actually. I did.
Oh, good.
Yes, but I just know from just so many other people I know and just what I've witnessed.
Yeah. All right. Well, we shall see what happens with this, but this is going to probably be a long journey. Not probably as long as Brendan Dassey, but it will take a while for this to resolve.
But it's good luck on him, man. He'll, just protect you. Look after yourself. That's the main thing. That's the solution.
Here's the thing too with Kanye. He's so brilliant, and it's so hard for me to believe that anybody can be that brilliant without being on the edge of insanity.
Yeah.
Really. And I don't know. My heart goes out to him. He's still a human being. People can go, oh, what problems does he have? He's, all this money and, all these different things and such a great life. But,
Because do you know what, Sean and Chelsea? People keep forgetting that Kanye is a dad. He has 2 children. There's a daughter and a son. People keep forgetting about Saint. They keep forgetting that there's a son that's looking up towards his dad. You know, even though he's a baby right now, but when he gets older, he doesn't want to look at dad as in that, nah, dad's a bit of a mad one. I don't want to, things like that.
All right. Well, we do wish Kanye the best. And now we've got to talk some football.
Oh, football.
What kind of football? My football.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to try this. Yes. Lou Pickney from DraftKings. If you hear this and I screw it up, please forgive me.
Let her rip.
Okay. Thanksgiving is this week, and there's no better combo than turkey and football, people. Unless, of course, your fantasy football season isn't going quite as planned and your family won't let you hear the end of it.
Well, I think rather than football, more people are going to be talking about politics. So this might be the only time that your family won't give you a hard time about your losing football team.
But don't worry. Don't worry.
Shade.
It's never too late to save your season and win huge cash prizes at DraftKings.com. Now, there's something to be thankful for, people. DraftKings is the destination for one-week fantasy football. That means no season-long commitments to busts and bench warmers. Never again will injuries have you combing the waiver wire. It's a brand new season every week at DraftKings. Just pick your contest, draft your team, and follow the live action. Oh, sorry, the action live. My bad.
Perfect.
Sorry, Lou. Renew rivalries with friends and family every week. That'll give you something to talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
It's a good way to avoid politics.
Right?
Maybe this is a good way to go about it.
Yes.
Peace and
and then
family
figure
by
out.
talking about football.
Or try 50-50 contests, where the top half of all entries win cash. Even if your current fantasy team is cooked, you can still win huge cash prizes every week at DraftKings.
Awesome.
Is that all?
DraftKings.com.
Am I supposed to read that stuff too?
Yeah, please do.
Keep going.
Call to action. Use code BSPORTS, BSPORTS, at DraftKings.com now and play free with your first deposit. That's BSports to play free for your share of over $100,000 in total prizes this weekend. Get to DraftKings.com now. DraftKings.com, people. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See site for details. Easy for me to say.
Sound like me. No.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to share our sponsors. That was your first time
First
ever.
time I've ever done a live read in my life.
Awesome. All right. Well, DraftKings, we hope we did you proud. Thank you for your support of Black Hollywood Live, and justice is served. Let's get back to the law, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go.
All right, now we got some Trump to talk.
Oh, boy.
First of two Trump stories we have. The first is that his lawsuit, or the lawsuit of several states and people across the country against Trump for his Trump University
Class
case.
action lawsuit?
Settled, yeah.
Yep.
So it settled for $25 million just days before it was set to begin trial here in California. And interestingly enough, the judge still has to approve it, and the judge that has to approve it is the same one that Trump said was incompetent to hear this case.
Wow.
And said that this judge was treating him unfairly because he was Hispanic, and since Trump is building a wall, this judge cannot hear this case and be objective. Pretty insulting, and even Speaker Ryan called that the classic standard definition of racism, to believe that somebody cannot do a job just because of their race. Be that as it may, it will come down to Judge Curiel approving this $25 million lawsuit. Trump tweeted about it, which, P.S., you're never supposed
not
to
allowed.
tweet or...
About a settlement?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, just goes to show. I mean, he'll
thinks
just
his
do
name's
whatever
Zeus.
he wants.
He thinks he's Zeus, king of the gods. Not even a god, king of the gods.
Yeah.
The gods.
I mean, we're up to now the fact that he has lost to Hillary Clinton in the popular vote by a spread of about 2 million votes, and yet he's still called president-elect. So yeah, he's approving. Let me try this again. He's not admitting any wrongdoing in seeking to get this settlement approved, which is very standard.
It's very common.
We won't make that mean anything. So, so don't go, well, he didn't approve he didn't admit to doing anything wrong. So, therefore, we cannot say that Trump admitted to doing anything wrong, but you don't pay $25 million as a nominal settlement fee. It just doesn't make sense, even though he claims that he tweeted out that he settled the Trump University lawsuit for a small fraction of the potential award because as president, I have to focus on our country. He went on to say the only bad thing about winning the presidency is that I did not have the time to go through a long but winning trial on Trump U. Too bad. I know. It's yeah. So the question, the fair point that he's raising is this issue about a small fraction of the potential award. Like, really, how big did this case have the potential to get? And is this really a small fraction? And I have heard some analysis of the case that probably in total, it could have reached maybe like soaking wet, it could have reached $100 million.
Which isn't that much more. Like, I mean, it is. It's 4 times more, but
exactly.
Still, it's not.
That's where I was going to go with this. And you know, some people said so. This was probably worth about $100 million if it had gone to trial and he lost, and that a fairer settlement would have been $50 million. And the fact that he got away with paying only 25, you know, perhaps is a big win for him. But to say that 25 million is a small fraction of 100 million is not small to me. Does not seem accurate to me. So maybe if he'd only paid 10 or 15 million, then I could say, all right, fine. He was probably right that he paid a small fraction. But I don't think 25 million is a small fraction.
And President-elect Trump is friends with Vince McMahon, the CEO of the WWE, and they're very similar in nature, very similar. And Vince McMahon's the type of guy that he will spend $100,000 to keep you from winning $50,000 from him, just so everybody knows that you don't sue Vince McMahon.
Yeah, and Trump has gone around saying that he never settles lawsuits.
Until now.
Obviously, he does. And he's blaming it on the fact that he's about to be president and needs to focus on that. I mean, it's
I'll give him that. I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Sure, yeah.
That's a swift movement there.
Yeah, so for now, I'm going to focus on the people who, you know, the victims, really, and what happens next for them. So, as usual, when a class action settlement is announced, first the judge has to approve this, and then everybody will get something in the mail saying that if you belong to this class of people, which is basically if you paid money to Trump University and didn't get it back already, submit this claim and you'll get some money back.
What if you weren't part of the initial lawsuit?
You can still sign on to it if you fit within the description of the class.
Well, geez, why wouldn't... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you can't just make something up because they do have to run the record and look to see if you really did pay money and that you haven't already received money back.
And that's a long process.
It could make... I don't know how long it'll be because we don't actually know how many people will end up joining this. And that... a number of people will determine how much money people get in the end. Because it is possible that if not everybody comes forward, people will get 100% of their money back. At the very worst case scenario, the members of the class will receive at least more than half, at least like 55% of their money back. Most of them should get, they're saying 75, 80% of it back, but most of their money back.
Do you know what I find so funny hearing about money and Trump, money and Trump? Remember that time when on the tabloids they put out Donald never he hasn't paid his taxes, $900 million.
Yes.
I'm like, me hearing this and the 25 million, obviously he's saying that's small. Look at the 900 million.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, this 25 million is very likely a tax write-off, which is a whole other situation.
I would high five on that one. Yes.
It's a whole other situation to grovel at, but, you know, hopefully this is good news.
If insurance doesn't pay it?
Well, insurance will not cover intentional conduct. So, like for example, you cannot take out insurance on punching somebody because that, or intentionally causing physical harm because that's just not a thing. But you can get insurance on covering yourself for accidentally causing harm to somebody else, like a car accident or something
Like
like
he
that.
accidentally ripped those people off of their money for
Yeah,
Trump University.
that's not going to fly. I don't
No?
think there's an umbrella policy that large
Okay,
or
Sean for
dumb
president.
enough. But I bet
I'm sure there's a
Donald
lawyer
asked that
somewhere.
question. He's like, it's like, is there an insurance company to cover this? I don't think so. But I mean, stranger things have happened, right? You know, watch him turn around and sue an insurer of Trump University. Perhaps.
There should be episodes of Donald Trump's life. You know, this one should be called Stranger Than Fiction.
Well,
you know?
speaking of, you know, this whole election season starting with the convention, I
Yeah.
was doing a show on AfterBuzz called Trump versus Hillary.
Yeah.
And it concluded with the election, or the day after the election, when we did our wrap-up show. But in the weeks to come, maybe even next week, we are reincarnating as a show called The Trump Report.
Oh yeah,
So
with Christian Blatt.
yes,
Yeah.
it is. So please come on over to AfterBuzz TV and catch us on The Trump Report starting, I believe it's next Tuesday. I mean, I've got it scheduled for then, unless we get some surprising news. But I am ready to talk about this because I think it's really important that everybody stay engaged.
Sure.
And people in the UK get engaged as well.
Yeah, I think we all have a very similar goal, and I see that if we can all look at ending the corruption in our politics here and abroad, that we will all move together in a similar direction.
That's what I'm saying. A solution. That's
Yeah.
what's happening.
And we are separate countries, but we have a symbiotic relationship
This
with
is
each other.
very
That
That's
true.
why
we
we're called
need.
United. You see,
Yes.
United Kingdom, United States. See that there?
Nicely done. All right, so in other Trump news, his pick for Attorney General is
Yay.
worthy of conversation. That is a sarcastic yay, right?
Of course it
yeah.
is.
So Donald Trump is saying that he wants to name Jeff Sessions, Republican from Arkansas, to serve as the Attorney General.
Yes.
And he's been well known as a fierce opponent of civil rights.
A lot of things, yeah.
In terms of civil rights, he's referred to the NAACP and the ACLU as un-American. Somebody testified to hearing him agree that a civil rights attorney may very well be a traitor to their race for taking on black clients, and that actually kept him from a federal judgeship. Like 30 years ago.
Yeah, he wasn't confirmed for the U.S. District Court in Southern District of Alabama,
Yeah.
1986.
Yeah.
And he was also he also said that the KKK, he thought they were okay until he heard they smoked pot.
Oh.
I mean, that's a legit thing that he said.
Can this guy just swap places with Kanye? Because why?
The problem is,
What is going on?
the problem is he's one of three picks that were all terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you had Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie were the other two that I think were in
The running, yeah.
Yes.
None of them would have been good news, but this one
Terrible.
is
See,
bad
time
news.
is going backwards.
Jeff Sessions falsely charged 3 African American civil rights activists in Alabama, including somebody who was an advisor of Martin Luther King Jr., with mail fraud and altering absentee ballots and attempting to vote multiple times when really these people were just helping elderly voters vote.
The something three, with the Marion Three? Is that what they were called? The civil rights activists?
They may have been. They faced a total of like 29 counts, but they
Yes,
were acquitted
they were
of
acquitted, yeah.
everything.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And he's also somebody who promotes this idea that there is a lot of voter impersonation, and so we need to crack down on voting.
Dead people voting?
Yeah, on voting, on people who shouldn't be voting, because just because they're on the rolls still, they haven't
Right.
been, doesn't mean that they're actually voting. But he believes in this myth that there is a lot of fraudulent voting going on, when the studies show that it's actually a very small issue, if one at all.
Exactly. Like 1% or something ridiculous
Yeah.
like that. And when I went to vote, they matched my signature with the signature on my driver's license. I didn't have to have an ID. I know some people just don't have them.
Yeah,
and
and it's creating a whole a whole lot of issues, and that is one of the things that moving forward we've got to address, is restoring the part of the Voting Rights Act that was sort of gutted within the last couple of years with the decision of one case that actually Jeff Sessions thought was a victory. And so it's really another not good reason to have Jeff Sessions be Attorney General, because he already believes that we shouldn't help people vote. We should make it harder to vote.
This is cruel,
it's
man.
not great for democracy
There's
at
another
all.
thing it's not great for either: the medical and recreational marijuana legislation across the country.
Yeah, and I'm keeping a careful eye on that, because I believe that is a huge issue that is not just about people who smoke pot. I don't, but if you care about criminal justice, if you care about the innocent people that are dying every day, especially in
Privatized
Central
prisons.
America, who are being killed in the drug trade and the private prison. I mean, this issue of marijuana goes so deep into our criminal justice system and justice in the world, that even if you don't smoke it or don't have a medicinal purpose for it or don't enjoy it, that this should be an issue that's important to you.
And it's also an issue that should be important to people that believe in states' rights.
Absolutely.
Federalism. And,
absolutely.
And because usually people from Mr. Sessions' party are all for states' rights.
Yeah.
But in this case, whoa, wait a minute, not this time.
Yeah, it is interesting, and
So you see,
Can't
cannabis. Do you guys have a class system of drugs? So like in Britain,
Yes,
we
we
have class
do.
A, B, and C.
Ours is it's cannabis. Cannabis is scheduled as a Schedule 1, meaning it has no medical value and a high
No medical value.
no
But
medical
it's
value
natural,
and a high
depending-
rate of abuse.
Depending if you put
you are
chemicals
so
in it.
well informed. I am impressed.
Oh yeah.
And the DEA recently had a chance to change all that, and they screwed the pooch.
Yes.
Oh my
Completely.
God. We had a
Yes,
similar
you're so right
circumstance
about
in
that.
Britain years ago by changing the cannabis class from C to B.
Okay,
So
what
if
does
someone
that
gets
mean?
caught with that, so before when it was on C, a child or an adult gets caught with the weed, they get kind of like a slap on the wrist, like you better not spread that stuff, confiscate it. But when it got changed to B, it was a bit more serious, handcuffs.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's gotten
But I think it's
more
yo-yoed. I think it's gone from back to C now.
interesting.
Because it's ridiculous.
Very interesting. So yeah, this is not great news for people that believe in civil rights.
That's right.
Or
States' rights.
states' rights in that regard. Yeah. So I mean, it's not set in stone yet.
Oh, okay.
He still has to be confirmed, but here's the problem: is they, as in Republicans, have a majority in the Senate. And
Yeah,
Congress.
although I was reading the transcript of Trump's meeting with the New York Times reporters
Oh
yesterday.
God, that's a whole other story.
And he seems to actually be concerned about his perception of endorsing racism. He said, I disavow, because there was that
Yes.
video that came out. or
Richard
that,
Spencer.
Yes. And so
nauseating.
he I don't know if he's mindful or his ego just is not okay with him being called a racist. And so I think he's been receiving those kinds of comments because of his decision to choose Stephen Bannon
Yes.
as his advisor. And so this is kind of on his radar, and he has shown that he's got some sensitivity to it. So I
Yeah.
think if people are attacking multiple appointments of his on this race issue with clear evidence to back it up, that he may rethink something.
And he truly believes he's not a racist.
Trump believes himself to not be a racist.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he is even aware of Jeff Sessions' past. I mean, I would not be surprised if he had no idea, and that reading about it when the media is talking about it is now the first time he's heard of it. So I am
Do you know what I said?
holding
Do you
out
know what I
hope
said to my
that-
family before I came here? And actually it was the second day I came here. And I said to my mum on the phone, if you look closely when he was meeting Barack Obama and they came out and he was sitting down and talking to the press, you see the Martin Luther King statue behind him, behind his head? When he gets into that White House and the Martin Luther King head is not there, I say he's racist. If it's there, not racist.
Very interesting observation.
There you go.
All right, and we've got to leave off with a really, I don't know how, a way to describe this other than tragic and infuriating.
Yeah.
The fact that 4 police officers were shot in one day, just this last Sunday,
That's
and then
shocking.
today there was another one in Michigan, and what there is to do about this. I mean, we had one in San Antonio. That guy was caught. He had killed, like, just
Some
point
child
blank.
custody issues he was mad about.
Yes, he was mad at the system.
Really, people?
And
And
he
they take it
wanted
out
to
on
take
him.
it out. Right, so he just basically went up to a cop sitting in his patrol car and opened fired and
bang.
killed a husband, father of 3, police officer.
I mean?
Just awful. And there's been 3 other similar situations on Sunday. A St. Louis sergeant was shot in the face, but is expected to survive. He was also sitting in his car at the time writing a traffic ticket. And in Florida, an officer was shot while writing a ticket. And then in another case in Missouri, an officer was shot by a teenager who was trying to run away from a traffic stop. So what the heck is going on?
There's something in the air.
That's one valid theory.
In any other situation, I'm pretty sure people would like come to the conclusion that these have to be coordinated. But I just don't think that that's the case here. I just think that it's the atmosphere right now.
And
Yeah.
what surprises me is that there's a lot of people who are really concerned about the safety of police officers, but who are also very resistant to any kind of gun reform laws.
Correct.
Yes.
And I don't really understand that, because gun control laws will keep hopefully innocent civilians safer and police officers safer. Not saying to take guns away from people, but to have background checks and to
Yeah.
make sure that we can trace who is
That they're licensed to hold a weapon.
right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, it's like, I mean, I am totally against the militarization of our police department.
Thank you so much.
But when people are shooting into cars and killing police officers, it makes me think you guys are not helping
Yeah.
my case in trying to argue against it. I mean, because now it seems that police cars need to be reinforced, have bulletproof
Bulletproof windows, yeah, that's
and
what I was
this,
thinking.
You know, and that's quite an expensive endeavor, but
Yeah.
it may become necessary, and the first thought that came to mind is that's a poor use of resources. We should be doing more to, help keep the police officers safe in another way,
Yeah.
rather than spending money on thicker glass. But it seems like, what other options do we have at this point with no gun control legislation in sight? And I know that a lot of people say, well, this isn't a gun control issue, this is a mental health issue, but nothing's really being done about
Again,
that.
where's the solution? It goes back to what I said at the beginning. Where is the solution? It's like piling up bricks on walls.
I have not heard of any mental health solutions. In fact,
See?
right now, we're in terms of healthcare, we're talking about removing health insurance for 20 million Americans.
That's right.
If Trump
No
chooses
way.
to repeal Obamacare. So we're not even talking about healthcare, mental health care at all in this country. So I don't see how this tide of violence is going to turn another way until we do something differently.
I can't imagine this situation, because in the UK we have NHS, so we've had that for many, many years since the war.
And that's your health insurance?
Yes.
And then you also
free.
do not have police officers walking around with
guns.
They
Oh,
don't
it depends.
carry,
Oh,
yeah.
no. Certain areas, especially in London. I'm not sure about the whole country itself, but in parts of central London, in Buckingham Palace, and all the prestigious areas. But if needed, then they will come with guns. If not,
Yeah. And the civilians, the general public, doesn't have guns either. And
no. The only
and
ones who have guns are, again, it's more prestigious, more like, fox hunting, because there's been a debate about that.
Yeah, the bad guys still have guns, though.
They do,
Yeah.
and their
Yeah.
drawers, and their, yeah. So,
And
That's
I mean,
the problem.
and
Yeah.
it's tough, right? Because if they can't keep the guns out of the hands of bad guys on an island,
Yeah.
how are we supposed to keep
How
the
you shield yourself.
guns
Right.
out of hands of bad people
It's-
when we've got borders north and
it's
south?
so rhetorical. It's very difficult.
Yes. It's not a simple
I don't
answer.
think it's hopeless, but
Yeah.
I do think that there is something, call it gun control, but I do think that there is some legislation that can address this that will decrease the numbers.
I think the term control maybe needs to be taken out of the equation.
Okay, we can call it something else.
It might be a little easier for people that cherish their right to possess firearms for them to consider certain things if it doesn't say gun control.
Right. That's true. That's fair. But that's very fair.
I mean, that's not
What about gun
that's not
patrol?
a solution by any means. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And this is a kind of a tough Thanksgiving, right? We've left off with this terrible story. And then the other thing that we have going on is this issue at Standing Rock.
Oh, Lord.
And that, we are macing
What are we doing
and
here?
water cannon and really doing terrible, disgusting things to Native Americans, to, average Americans who are trying to go and protect the land and the
we're
water.
arresting journalists.
Yeah.
Saying that they're inciting riots and that they're not real journalists because they're reporting on something that the mainstream media is not reporting on?
Yes.
Yeah. So this Thanksgiving, while you're giving thanks, we also ask that you keep in your heart and your mind these officers who've been gunned down and officer safety in general, and also those at Standing Rock who are committed to, I don't know, clean
protecting their water and their environment.
right. So this will be a bit of a somber Thanksgiving for me.
It really
Not sure how it will be for
Reflecting
you.
this year in the US and the UK, it's really thought-provoking.
Yes, you have to dig deep for things to be grateful for. Well, there's plenty of things, but still.
I'm really, really good at finding those things these days in my life. So
Good,
yes.
good. I think I am too. And then there's a little bit of like, ooh, guilt. Like, this is so easy for me to be thankful for, and so many other.
Right.
Yeah. So this is like I said, this is a tough Thanksgiving. But I hope that both of you enjoy your Thanksgiving
And you as well.
immensely.
It's going to be my first Thanksgiving because we don't have it in the UK.
Awesome. And I am so thankful that you relieved me of this idea that I might be doing a one-woman show, and you both added awesome insights and opinions to these legal cases. I am thoroughly impressed.
Very welcome.
Very appreciative of your time and willingness to do this really on the fly. You guys are the best. You guys have offered some really great stuff. I'm sure our audience agrees. Please make sure to join us next time, and you can definitely find my guest hosts on social media.
I'm on Twitter at @TheRealXPac.
I'm on Twitter at VarietyD, letter D.
And as always, I'm at Chelsea Galicia, and I thank you so much for joining us for Justice is Served. Enjoy the turkey. I was going to say something about how to enjoy a vegan turkey, but for Shaka. But anyways, that didn't come to me quickly enough. Enjoy, everyone, and come back next week to another episode of Justice is Served. Bye, everyone.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio, Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.